Hello and welcome to the 11th Ohio Cavalry's YouTube channel. This is our first video in a series of videos that we're going to do. My name is Steve Dacus, and right now I'm the president of the 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry Reenacting Organization. And we as a unit decided to do these videos mainly because there's a world and a wealth of information out there for infantry, for those of you who want to get in infantry and what to wear, what to buy, how to do the tactics, all that good stuff. But there's very little information easily accessible to those who want to do Civil War cavalry reenacting. And so that's why we decided to actually do this video and do a series of videos to help those who are interested in cavalry reenacting get the information that took me about 2 years to get. So I wish there was better information out there, more accessible information, because as we all know, time is valuable and it's hard to spend hours upon hours researching a good impression before you go in the field. So that's why we're going to do this video. We appreciate you watching this first video, and what we're going to cover in today's video is what sets apart mainstream reenactors from authentics or campaigners, what Civil War cavalry reenacting is really about, and really what sets good reenactors apart from other reenactors. We'll touch a little bit on what makes a good kit or good impression, clothing, and your gear, but we'll probably do a whole video on that alone. So welcome and hope you have a good time. And of course, the first thing that people think of when they hear cavalry is, of course, the horse. But Civil War cavalry reenacting is a little bit more than just the horse or being able to know how to ride. One thing that we find with the people who come and join our unit is that a lot of people say, I don't have a horse, I don't know how to ride, I like riding, but I don't have all the stuff. And we'll get to all that information here in a little bit, but one of the things that it's nice to know is while Civil War cavalry reenacting does fairly depend on the horse pretty good, there are other Civil War cavalry groups out there called the Dismounted Groups, the dismounted units. And what that means is they portray dismounted cavalry soldiers, which a lot of people say is not right, or how can you have cavalry without horses? But what a lot of people don't understand is the Civil War cavalry, generally when they fought engagements, they would dismount, not all the time, but they would dismount and fight on foot. And so for events, depending on what type of event you're doing, a dismounted cavalry engagement or dismounted cavalry unit would be appropriate. And so this applies to those guys as well. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how to put your kit together and your tack and your gear together. Usually the question that usually comes up first and foremost is, where do I get my gear? How do I buy it? How much is it? And what do I need to get versus what's optional? The first thing I can tell you is don't buy anything yet. Whatever unit you get with or get in contact with, most of the units out there have enough stuff that they can lend you it, kind of let you borrow to see if you like the hobby, because unfortunately this is an expensive hobby to get into, and it kind of stinks if you spend so many $1,000 or so to get into it, realize you don't like it, and then have to get out of the hobby, sell off the stuff, all that kind of stuff. So the best thing to do is honestly just borrow stuff to begin with. The other thing as far as where to buy is there's a lot of different places to buy. Now what I find, especially for our new guys that join our unit, is they want to buy something as soon as they can to get their own stuff, but what they realize, they don't know, because they haven't done the research, where to buy the quality stuff. And that's the biggest difference between mainstream reenactors and authentics is that research to put into where to buy it, because all too often the difference in cost between an authentic garment or authentic gear versus mainstream gear or less quality or high quality gear is really just a few dollars here and there. I mean, if you're talking a $100 belt, the difference may be $100 versus $120. A 20% difference makes all the difference in the world from a mainstream aspect or an authentic aspect. So really, where to get our stuff is one of the biggest questions we get asked. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the difference between authentic reenactors, our campaigner reenactors, and mainstream reenactors. I remember when I first got into the hobby, you know, I really didn't know what the difference was or who was who or why there's different factions, but like any other hobby, there's the guys who take it to the full extreme, and there's people in the hobby that just kind of dabble in a little bit. And honestly, it's great. It's awesome to see guys get together and from different aspects and different walks of life. But one thing that we all need to remember is this is a hobby. We all draw our lines of authenticity at different locations, some closer to the FARB line and some closer to the authentic campaigner line. But one thing that we all need to understand is this is a hobby. And what took me, honestly, years to figure out was, you know, what's the difference? I mean, for instance, you know, what's the difference between this this shell jacket and say something like this shell jacket? You would see on the forums, whether it's civilwarreenactor.com, the forum, or authenticcampaigner.com, you would see people tear apart other people for not having the right jacket or you know, not buying it from a certain vendor or certain type of stitching, all that kind of stuff. And again, honestly, just take everything with a grain of salt, do your own research. The biggest difference between a mainstream reenactor and an authentic campaigner reenactor is honestly research. Spend the time to do your research. Take the time to know what you want, what type it is that you want, and then go out and purchase it, because there's a lot of vendors out there that do high quality work. Of course, there's the Walmart vendors out there that they sell a lot of stuff. Nothing's really super high quality, but everything is there. They make it real easy. I mean, a good example of this is Fall Creek. They do a really good job of getting mainstream stuff out there, and it works for, you know, 70 to 80% of the reenactors out there, and the rest, I mean, that group doesn't really care whether you have the right kersey wool or whether it's the right weave or the right shade, the shade that you know, that fades purple or a shade that doesn't fade purple, and all this is that difference. And so to give you an idea of the difference between mainstream and authentics, authentics pride themselves, or campaigners, they pride themselves in doing it as authentic as possible, living the life of a cavalry soldier, in this context of a cavalry soldier, and really focusing on the authentic lifestyle. And now, I hate the word authentic personally. This is Stephen Dacus' take on the word. I don't like that word, because that word, everyone uses the word authentic. Everyone uses that word authentic. And we have mainstream events who say we have authentic standards, or hey, we're going to do things authentic. You have campaigner events that say we're going to do things authentic, and that really doesn't mean anything, because everyone has their different idea of what authentic is. For instance, when you look at your shell jacket, or your sack coats for that matter, the dye is kind of an indicator of the quality or not, you know, high quality or low quality. For instance, the mainstream sack coats or the shell jackets that you can get from Fall Creek or the other mainstream, what I call Walmart vendors, they're blue. If you actually wear it for a while, wear it out in the sun, in a few years you'll see it'll start to fade to purple, which you'll see in movies and videos and pictures that you find on the internet, or events you go to. You'll find some older guys wearing, or some guys wearing some older gear, and if it looks faded and it looks purple, that's a different type of dye that they actually used originally. For instance, this is a sack coat made by Nick Sekla. He has a different type of dye that doesn't fade out, like the indigo blue versus this darker blue here. So again, that's one of the differences. Another difference between the campaigners and mainstream reenactors is where they decide to draw their line of authenticity. What I mean by that is, for instance, are they going to take the time to roll their pistol cartridges and put them in a box like this, or are they going to just take a flask in their packs and load it in the field and put the caps in the field? And that's the difference we're talking about. In addition to, are they going to have plastic bags like this in their cartridge boxes or their haversacks, or are they going to package them up, again, in authentic style packaging like this? And so, like I said, everyone draws their lines differently, and that's one thing I strongly urge all my viewers and watchers to do, is to do your research and figure out what you want to do. A lot of guys complain about the AC forum, the Authentic Campaigners forum, how certain people get irritated and they're mad and they snipe back pretty quick on a new guy who asks what quote-unquote dumb questions. And the reason the old timers aren't very polite to those guys because they don't use the search function. Questions they ask on these forums, whether it's the AC forum or the American Civil War Reenactors forum, they don't do the research. They don't even do Google search on questions that they need to find out, when if they would have just done that, they would have found out their answer. If you show effort and you show that you were trying to find a certain question out and trying to find out what you need to know, then a lot of people are willing to help you. But that's the biggest difference on why the AC has a bad rap, is because if you don't show effort in trying to research something, then they'll get back and just say, hey, there's a thing called Google, use it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You got to ask yourself, the first question you got to answer for yourself is, why are you in this hobby? Are you in this hobby because you love history, you want to do it right? Are you in this hobby because your friends do it and it looks cool? Are you in this hobby because you want to portray and honor the American Civil War soldier? Why are you in this hobby? And honestly, that will steer you to whatever types of events you want to go to, whether it's a mainstream event or a campaigner event. Now, the difference between a mainstream event and a campaigner event is simply, mainstream events are generally for the public, and they focus on the public. And from the reenactor perspective, you don't live like the original Civil War soldier did. Mainstream events stereotypically are weekend events that you arrive, you set up your company streets, especially cavalry-wise. You put up your high lines, you tie your horses to it, they bring in hay, you feed your horses hay. Your tents, whether it's an A-frame tent or a dog or a pup tent, anything like that, or your shelter halves, you set up your tents, they stay there the whole weekend. And a lot of people in mainstream events, they bring coolers, generators, they bring food that's not accurate, they bring food that's in plastic wrap, they bring other things that is in plastic wrap, they bring a lot of things that to them are okay as long as the public can't see it. Now, one thing that you'll notice is the difference between a mainstream event and a campaigner event is a mainstream event mentality is, if the public can't see it, it's okay. For instance, you can see, if you look closely, you can see my cell phone indentation in my pocket. If I was at a mainstream event, that would be okay, maybe. A campaigner event, that would definitely be frowned upon, and you might be asked to remove your cell phone completely, because you shouldn't have that at all. And that's what a campaigner event is. It is a authentic event in which you eat period rations. You actually live like they did. You march, you set up camp, whether you want to put up your shelter half or not. If it rains on you, deal with it, kind of a deal. That's the difference. Both events, when you get in the field and you do your battles, both events, they focus on the drill. They make sure that you know what to do, or they expect you know what to do, whether it's order arms, march, left wheel, right wheel, whatever it is. But when it comes to the rest of the life of a cavalry soldier, that's really what sets apart campaign events from mainstream events. Again, one thing I definitely want to, communicate to you guys who are maybe interested in doing Civil War cavalry reenacting, or the guys that are in it who want to get better. The biggest thing I can tell you is choose your events wisely. If you expect a certain event, go to those type of events. For instance, we go to our group, we kind of are right there in the middle. We're by no means an authentic campaigner unit, but we also tend to do things a little bit beyond what the mainstream events expect. For instance, we went to an event, or before we went to an event, we looked at the rules, we looked at what the expectations were, and of course everyone says, be authentic, know your manual, know your tactics. And so what do? We drill for 6 months before this event. We get there, we drill and practice, every weekend we practice on inspection arms, stand a horse, how to mount without looking ridiculously unorganized. We practice that consistently, and especially the inspection arms aspect. There's a very specific way that you stand in the standard rank and file forms up, and they do an inspection arms. And there's a specific way to do that we'll talk about in a different video, but we spend so much time doing that. We go to this event, and the sergeant is in charge of inspecting our arms, a safety inspection, he just says, all right, everyone passes a safety inspection, there you go. And one of the corporals and the lieutenant comes in later and says, no, you can't do that, do an inspection arms. until the sergeant forms us all up again, and he doesn't even do any orders. He just comes up to one of us at a time, and he just kind of looks at it, gives it back to you, and walks down the line. No formation, no actions how we should have done inspection arms. And for us, that was kind of disappointing because we spent all this time being authentic. I hate that word, right? Being authentic, knowing your tactics, knowing your behavior, knowing your orders, and not having a chance to do that at an event. So again, choose your programs wisely, choose your events wisely, or if you choose something that may be below what you want, at least know what you're getting into. Say, hey, this is a mainstream event, or maybe even this is below a mainstream event. They're not going to, they're going to inspect us, do a safety inspection of your arms, but they're not going to form you up. They're not going to do the formal inspection arms ceremony. Or on the campaigner side of things, if you're a mainstream guy who wants to get in the authentic campaigner side of things, know that if you're going to go out there, know your manual of arms, know what order arms is, know what carry arms is, know how to do an inspection arms without having to look down the line and copy everyone else. That's one thing that sets good units apart from mainstream units, is if you have to look down the line and copy whatever everyone else is doing, then you don't know what you need to know. You should know that, especially on the inspection arm side of things, if the inspector gets 2 men down from you, you return your arm, whether it's your saber, carbine, pistol, whatever, you return your arm and progress to the next one. And these are all things that set good reenactors apart from mainstream or even poor reenactors. Another thing on the authenticity side that seems very little talked about is the behavior and the tactics that reenactors use. There's a lot of focus on the correct gear, the correct leather, the correct dyed leather, the right hat, the right impression, the right gun for the right year, the right type of haversack for what year you're doing, early war, late war. There's all this talk about the gear, the equipment, but there seems not to be as much focus on the tactics of everything. Now this is really important because honestly, if you're really talking about being authentic and what you want to do, you need to spend more time, I think, learning the tactics, learning cooks versus point sets, learning the difference, knowing where you're supposed to be, knowing the orders, knowing the manual of arms, the school of the soldier. That's where you know your difference. That's where the true authentic campaigner, the true Civil War reenactor comes out. If they know the manual of arms, if they can do inspection arms, if they can do order arms, if they can do all the tactics, as soon as the order is given, they can do it, function, and go through that order properly. That, in my opinion, sets apart the good reenactors from the quality reenactors. As you will find on the internet, there's a lot of authentics that say they're authentics or campaigners, but they spend more time on the internet than they do in the field. They spend all their time and all their money on the equipment, the gear, the uniforms, but they don't know how to do the tactics, they don't know the orders, and they get so focused on cooks versus point sets that they don't know what they're doing. That is one of the things that you'll definitely have to learn, is cooks versus point sets, what your unit uses, or depending on what unit you're portraying in a reenactment, what you need to know. We go to some events that they use point sets, we go to other events that they use cooks. So again, depends on what you're doing, goes back to research. As you start reenacting, one of the other things that you will find is the term farb. That's a term that's no one, from what I can find, no one knows where it came from. But what a farb is basically someone who doesn't do the research, doesn't really care about doing things right, and does certain things wrong. The problem, though, with people using the word farb is you will find people who use it on aspects of, like, cartridge boxes. You know, you have a $13 cartridge box or a $100 cartridge box, depending on who really cares or who can tell a difference. This may be called farby versus this one. But really the difference, like I said before, is what you do in the behavior and how you handle yourself on the field. The biggest difference of what makes a good reenactor set himself apart from the farbs is research. As you can see here, this is just a fraction of the books in the library I've collected over the years. I've read most of them, thumbed through all of them at least, but really the biggest thing is research, research, research. If you do the research, if you commit yourself to doing it right, you will not be a farb. And like I said, whether you you know, the cost of the gear, that's different than how you handle yourself on the field. Knowing the history, knowing the equipment, knowing what actually happened, and knowing the real I guess the real life of a cavalry soldier, that's what makes the difference. One of the things that as a new reenactor, if you're new to the hobby, the 2 books I will definitely recommend to you is this book called Hardtack and Coffee. This book honestly gives you a real good snapshot of a day-to-day life of a soldier in the Civil War. Not really cavalry specific, but it gives you a lot of good information. Another book, if you can get a hold of it on the forums, the AC forum, even in the American Civil War forum, is the Authentic Campaigner Handbook. Really good book, a lot of information in there. But really, beyond that, is get into the 2 tactics manuals that most cavalry reenactors do or study. It's the Cook's Manual or the Poinsettia's Manual. We'll get into it more so in a different video, but really the biggest difference is a 2-rank system versus a single rank system. But really, guys, what sets FARBs apart from good reenactors or good reenactors from FARBs is the research you do, the commitment you have to do it right. The last thing I'm going to talk about is how to carry yourself and how to just look the part. There's been a lot of times where people look at someone or they look at themselves and they know something's different, they know something's wrong, they know they're not wearing something right, but they have the right gear, they have the right coat, they have the right hat, but it just doesn't look right. And all I can say to this is the same thing that they always say about how to train bankers to detect counterfeit money. The best way to be able to detect counterfeit money is look and handle and deal with real money. The best way to identify a good reenactor, someone who knows what they're doing, how to put their leather on appropriately, how to do everything correctly, is through looking at as many original photographs as possible. You want to look at photographs, you want to look at them again, you want to zoom in. The best thing to do is look at original photographs, because one of the things a lot of reenactors do to begin with that is a mistake is they wear their leathers, they wear their belts too low. They wear clothing that isn't the right size necessarily. Now I don't mean necessarily the right size for them and their body. I mean the right size was traditional during that time frame. So really, like I said, to kind of close this video up is definitely pay attention to original photographs. That is the best way you'll train your eye and train your brain to know what is right and what is wrong in the field. So that about wraps up, or actually does wrap up, our first video for the YouTube channel and our 11th Ohio group. We appreciate you listening. We'll try to keep our future videos a little bit shorter than this one. Try to keep them at that 15-minute mark versus the 20-minute mark. But we feel this first video, we kind of want to lay the foundation, the groundwork of kind of where we're going. So look forward to more videos, and again, get into the books, look at original photographs, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them on our website, post them below on this video, or just contact us. You can go to our Facebook page at 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry, or the same website, 11thohiocavalry.com. Thank you very much, and have a great day.